unintended pregnancies. As we move into today's program, and if it feels safe for you, I invite you to consider your own origin story. For so many of us, the story of how we came to be started with my mother never planned for me. And from that shared starting point, these stories can go in so many directions. Unintended pregnancies may lead to children who are wanted. It can also lead to safe and unsafe, legal and illegal abortions. But ultimately, regardless of how things turn out, the issue of unintended pregnancy is one that about 50% of women and girls must contend with, and so must we. And as always, I personally want to thank UNFPA for leading us into these waters, especially at a time when it's so tempting, but so damaging for us to shift our focus. Today, we'll be welcomed by Alison Drayton, Director of the UNFPA Sub-Regional Office for the Caribbean. And then we'll hear from some youth advocates who are doing some fantastic work across the region. We'll do some myth busting with some video contributions from members of UNFPA's Youth Advisory Group, and then we'll open the floor for question and answer. Now, I know that the question might come up and you might feel that you will remember the question at the appointed time, but I'm asking you to not do that with your memory. Write the question in the chat. Please make note of the question in the chat so that we can come back to it. And since this is the regional launch of the report and this is a global conversation, if you are sharing about this online, please use the hashtag Seeing the Unseen, which is the hashtag that we are using to talk about this issue of unintended pregnancies and this year's report. So I'm pleased that you've decided to spend this time with us. We will do our best to make the absolute best use of this time. So without further ado, please help me to welcome Alison Drayton to give this morning's welcome. Alison, over to you.
Good morning, Carla. Good morning, everyone. And always a pleasure to be in any meeting you're moderating, Carla. I love the energy always. So again, morning, everyone. It is indeed my pleasure to bring you brief welcome remarks as we launch the State of the World Population Report here in the Caribbean region. The title of the report, as Carla has mentioned, is Seeing the Unseen, the Case for Action in the Neglected Crisis of Unintended Pregnancy. Today's launch takes the form of a youth roundtable talk. And I would like to recognize our youth panelists who are from all across the region and congratulate them on their advocacy, not only for themselves, but other youth in the Caribbean through their participation in this discussion today and beyond. Colleagues, our focus on young people for this event is deliberate. We recognize that young women in developing countries, like those in our region, are significantly affected by unintended pregnancies. In fact, every day in developing countries like ours, 20,000 girls under the age of 18 give birth. This amounts to 7.3 million births a year. And if all pregnancies are included, not just births, the number of adolescent pregnancies is much higher. In the Caribbean, 69% of the countries have an adolescent birth rate above 40 births per 1,000 girls aged 15 to 19. This is well above the estimated global average for middle-income countries, which is 37.2. So our region, always pleased to be a leader, is leading, unfortunately, with nearly twice the global average for middle-income countries. The 2022 SWOP report highlights that contraception is the most obvious way to prevent unintended pregnancy. Contraception refers to the act of intentionally preventing pregnancy. Modern contraceptives include the pill, injectables, male and female condoms, implants, intrauterine contraceptive devices, IUCDs, and female and male sterilization. And while all methods can fail, especially if used incorrectly, the biggest issue by far is people not being able to get the contraception that they need when they need it. I would note that in the Caribbean, this is a particular issue for young people, male and female, because in almost every country, it is not possible for young people below the age of 18 to access family planning services. And this would include not only the methods to prevent pregnancy, but even advice. Given the sad state of discussions on issues relating to sexuality in our schools, we have young people who get pregnant not even knowing how it happened. This is not a small problem. The SWOP report further highlights that globally, around 257 million who want to avoid pregnancy are not using safe modern methods of contraception. Among them, a total of 172 million are using no method at all. This is compounded by the fact that there are many myths surrounding the use of contraceptives. I am happy to see that some of these myths will be debunked in today's discussion. The discussions will also focus on the importance of contraceptives in helping UNFPA Caribbean support the region to achieve key strategic outcomes, including reduction of unmet need for family planning and reduction of preventable maternal deaths. I am sure, ladies and gentlemen, that we are all very excited to hear the rich perspectives that will be shared by our youth today. In closing, I recall UNFPA's continued commitment to our mission to deliver a world where every pregnancy is wanted, every childbirth is safe, and every young person's potential is fulfilled. I am sure this event today is indeed a testament to that. Thank you all, and back to you, Carla.
Thank you so much, Alison. It's always a pleasure to be here with you. And thank you for reminding us of the importance of something as simple as advice. I think when we come to conversations about this and, we're launching something as significant as this report, we can think that, the change that needs to happen is at the systemic level, it's at the institutional level, without remembering that even in our homes and in our communities, just having open conversations with young people is also a part of that work that we need to do to keep them safe and to ensure that all pregnancies are wanted. So thank you so much for that. So we'll now move into our next segment, and I'll actually piggyback on something that Alison said, that, in the Caribbean, we tend to be leaders. We're leading in some areas that we don't want to be leading in, but we do tend to be leaders here. And actually, we're going to be talking to some youth leaders from the Caribbean for our next segment. We'll be leaning into that question of unintended pregnancies. How does it affect me? And we'll be thinking about this at the individual and the country development levels. So we'll be hearing from 3 people today, and I will introduce them to you. Our first speaker, Shatera Adrai, is a driven 24-year-old member of the Youth Advisory Group of UNFPA Suriname and various organizations working with youth from all backgrounds to bring about sustainable change. With this same passion, as a Maroon youth, she embarked on a study reviewing the social determinants of adolescent pregnancies among Maroon youth, where there is a high prevalence in Suriname. The study highlighted the need for sexual and reproductive health education and services. And please welcome our first speaker for today, Shatera, who will be talking to us about that and so much more. Shatera, please wait so people know who you are. Thank you so much. The second person we'll be hearing from today is Christopher Gilts. I was born with a disability called spina bifida and 2% hydrocephalus, which I have to use a wheelchair to get around. I do not let my disability get to me. I live by a quote, which is, "The only disability is your own attitude." I represented Barbados in Guyana, Grenada, and Trinidad and Tobago, respectively, as a member of the Youth Advocacy Group of the United Nations Population Fund. I am also a Paralympian, a former Sportsman of the Year, an artist, and a member of various project committees that address inclusion of persons with disabilities and speak to youth issues. Please make welcome our second speaker today, Christopher Gilts. Christopher, make them know who you be. Yeah, okay. And our final speaker for today is Adriana Chappelle, a former adolescent mother, from Women Across Differences, WAD Guyana, a member of the board of directors of Women Across Differences, and a member of the Young Mothers for Change group of Women Across Difference, a group where we go into schools and communities to encourage young girls to stay in schools and to protect themselves from becoming teenage mothers. I am a strong young advocate for vulnerable young girls in my community, my organization, as well as my society. I believe in empowering them because they are the future. Please welcome Adriana Chappelle. Adriana, let them know who you are. Thank you so much. Yay. So for our speakers today, they will each get 2 minutes to give us their best shot, to hit us with what they really want us to know about themselves and their community. Shatera is like, what? Best shot? About what they really want us to know about themselves and their communities. And then we will have a little bit of a conversation with each other. If you have any questions for any of our speakers today, please put them in the chat so we can try to address them. You can also use the raise hand feature if it's happening during the question and answer segment, right? So the first person who is going to be opening the floor for us today is Shatera. Shatera, are you ready to go?
Yes, thank you, Carla.
Okay. Go ahead.
So I'm very honored to be here and to meet the other panelists from across the Caribbean, Christopher and Adriana, and everyone else in the Zoom. The question was posed, unintended pregnancy, how does it affect me? I do not have a personal story as Adriana, beautiful background, but I can relate to the question in some extent. To answer that, I'd like to share with you a study I embarked on that was supported by the UNFPA. It's a review of social determinants of adolescent pregnancies among Maroon youth in Suriname. It should be noted that the initial study did focus on the whole African population in Suriname, but given the evidence of high prevalence of adolescent pregnancy and various differences among the African population, the focus became the Maroons. Being a Maroon youth myself, I had an idea of what the findings would be, and I like to share with you what I know to be true on how unintended pregnancy affects me and my community. The finding shows, and I know this to be true, that most girls start working after their pregnancy. When girls start working to be self-supporting, they do not continue schooling. The majority of support is received through the immediate family, who may have restricted means themselves too. So no immediate support results in abandonment of the children or placement of the children in weakened childcare institutions. This is a factor that contributes to the intergenerational transfer of poverty. And I really can speak to that. So since the mother herself is socially and economically dependent and cannot provide for her children, this challenges the survival and development of her children too. During the discussions, participants also informed us that pregnancy at the age of 16 to 18 years are evident in their immediate environment. Although it's not perceived as normal, many families have young women pregnant at early age. Some participants indicated that the intention of pregnancy was not there and the immediate family was not content with the situation. At first, however, the situation is accepted and the immediate family or boyfriend may support, because there's a general concept here that especially within the Maroon community, that children is wealth. So at the end, the situation is embraced. This sentiment is important in the ultimate decisions that are being made and the value that is placed on having children. And so the cycle continues. And me believing in the mission of UNFPA, believing in delivering a world where every pregnancy is wanted, every childbirth is safe, and every young person potential is fulfilled, I recognize the cycle and I do my part in keeping myself aware and making the community aware of how unintended pregnancy affects me and us. So that's what I wanted to open with, Carla. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shatera. And thank you for bringing that perspective about Maroon youth. And I really hope we get the opportunity to get into that a little bit more as we're talking. So now I will welcome our second speaker, Christopher Jilks, to talk to us. Christopher, you ready?
Yes, please.
All right, go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Christopher Gills, and as Carla said, I'm a person with a disability, and I haven't had personal experience, but as an advocate for persons living with disabilities in Barbados, sometimes it is a challenge, whereas the community would see persons with disabilities not being able to live a full life or have children. So that seems to be a myth, as though, oh, you can't have sex, you can't do this, you can't do that. But I know of a situation where there's a lady that has two children. She is a wheelchair user. And they would, some persons would look at her as though, she's not, how would you be able to take care of them financially? So this is some of the challenges persons with disabilities would face in having, going up with the community, and we have to face the society on a day-to-day basis, picking up these things, and then we have to be able to let them know we are still people, and we too have feelings and emotions just like everyone else. So there is no way or reason why we cannot protect ourselves just like the able-bodied community. But what I see is lacking is information. There's not enough information out there for persons with disabilities around contraceptives and healthcare. So this is something, this forum is one that I want to take away, and also, help persons to see that because you have a disability, it does not mean inability. We all have challenges and we all have to find ways to overcome them. So include us and not exclude us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Christopher. Oh, and you did it ahead of time. So,
No, I was monitoring the time as well. So
I know, I'm impressed. I'm impressed. Adriana, are you ready to join us? Thank you so much, Christopher. Adriana, you
no
ready
problem.
to go? Adriana, we're not hearing you. Oh.
Okay. Okay. So good morning, everyone. I feel so privileged to be here to share my story. I hope that I make an impact on someone's life today. So here we go. How does an unintended pregnancy affect me? So I will speak from my experience. I must say it affected me generally because I had to make drastic decisions and changes, not only to my body, but my lifestyle, in order to welcome a child that I wasn't ready for. Having said this, in the eyes of society, I was discriminated. I was treated as though I committed a crime because I was 15 and pregnant. But what most people don't realize is that you don't know the young people's story. We go through so much in a dysfunctional home, and then we have society that is on our backs on a daily basis, telling us what they think they know. So I faced many challenges as a teenage mother, and due to those challenges, I am the person I am today. But even though I have evolved into the person I am, and I could not only as a person but financially, and I could be able to sustain my family, I also support and I encourage young women to protect themselves because I am aware of the challenges you face as a teenage mother, where you don't have a job and you have to uh, depend on your mother. In my case, my mother was a single parent, which was another task for her. And in order to be developed, you have to have that one support. Thank God I had one. Thank God Miss Clonel was there for me. And today, voila, I'm the person I am today. Now, I go from school to school, even to my old school, to share my story because being abused as a child you get told not to say anything. And I encourage anyone out there, you must say something. That's the only way you would break the whole society pressure. You need to say something so that something can be done about it. You're not to be blamed for what happened. Okay, so I encourage young girls to stay in school. I encourage young girls to evolve, study, do the best that you can, abstain from sex. I encourage parents to love their children, to love them through that stage that is very difficult to go through, which is the adolescent stage. To know your children, to know that something is up, to know that something is not right. And yes, let us love and educate our young women. They are our future. They bring forth children. So let's help them to bring forth children at the right time, at the right moment, in the right place. That's it for me.
Thank you so much for that, Adriana. And thank you to all of our speakers today. We do have a small space for question and answer now. So if you're interested, you can put it in the chat or you can raise your hand and ask. And I'm also opening the space for if our speakers have any questions that they'd like to ask of each other. If there's anything that they would like to discuss in more detail. I love that Shatera is making the thinking face. You know, the one where you look at the sky like.
No, I just found the different perspective also applaudable, and I resonate with Adriana story a little bit with the focus group I had, and this is exactly what we need. People that can tell from a personal perspective and go school to school. So that's also what we try to do. So I just wanted to add that. I don't really have a question at the moment.
Adriana, I see you've unmuted. You have a response?
So can you go that over? I didn't get it clear.
You want to go over it, Shatera? You want me to take it?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Me? Okay. No, I think you're not hearing?
Yeah, you can go.
Oh, I think Shatera was just saying that she really resonates with what you said, and it's very important for us to have young people who can speak from a place of personal experience, especially when we're going into schools and stuff like that. Which actually brings to mind a question from me, which is, what made you decide that you were going to start talking to other young people? Because having this experience doesn't automatically guarantee that you'll make that decision that you're going to try to reach somebody else. What was the thing for you that shifted, that made you decide that you wanted to become a part of what?
Okay, so when I started what, I was shy. I started as a victim. I was pregnant, didn't know how to get how did I get pregnant, and I felt as though when I broke the ice and I spoke about what happened to me as a young girl, I I realized how important it was to share it and not keep it silent. When I shared my first story the very first time, and I heard a 59-year-old woman said, this is the very first time she is going to disclose that she was abused sexually by her uncle. And she lived with it for years and never said anything, never wanted to get children, never wanted to be in a relationship. And that's how bad it affects everyone, because you see, as a child, you blame yourself. And then because of so lack of information for parents, you know, they think it's a shame if you go say something, you go to the authorities. So I do believe that it's important, and my point shifted that time when that woman told me, because at that moment I was 17 and she was 59. So I felt like I did something with my story. And after that, I went telling everyone exactly what happened and how they can help themselves and how they can make themselves a survivor, not live as a victim. Because it is important for you to understand, yes, this is what happened, but this cannot be my determination. This cannot define me. So today I am a mother. I encourage my children to love themselves. They have such confidence in themselves. At any point they tell me anything, we have a very open um, unity. They feel free to say whatever they want to say. I have currently a teenager, and it is funny how he says to me, you know, if I should ever come to you with a child, it means I didn't listen to anything you say, because every day, mom, you sing it in my ears. So I said, I do it because I want you to be better. I'm currently pursuing my dreams of being a helicopter pilot, but it wasn't easy, because to get here, I I had to face a lot of challenges. I had to face discrimination. I had to face, oh, she's 15 and pregnant, her parents didn't do a good job, or she just didn't listen, or she just wanted to get pregnant. And being in the hospital 15 and pregnant, it's hard. And I had to overcome that by telling myself, it is not your fault. You can be an overcomer. I do believe that God has brought me this far. It is important that you involve God in everything. And I do believe that He doesn't do anything without a plan. So me being pregnant at 15 and having my story to share was His plan in my life, so that other people can have a freedom for what happened to them.
Thank you so much
So
for that, Adriana. Thank you. We have actually two questions in the chat. I think people are resonating a lot with what you're saying. Two questions in the chat about how your own mother responded when you became pregnant. So you've spoken about your own children and the fact that you talk to them about it every day, but folks are asking, was your mom angry or disappointed? How did she react?
oh boy. Oh boy. Okay,
Oh
being
boy.
one of her most excellent child, and this is why I input it, that you must know your children must know that something is wrong with them. I i always wanted to make my mom proud, but at that moment where I had nobody to talk to, I confided in the wrong person. And when she found out, she was highly disappointed, because she had very high hopes of me finishing school, evolving into this great human. And now that I am a mother, I understand the great disappointment she felt. And there isn't a day that goes by that I don't apologize to her, because I know the hurt I caused. But she was very disappointed. We had to go counseling for a while, because she took a while to even accept the fact that I was pregnant. I think the way she dealt with it at that moment, that's how best she knew how to deal with it, because she was hurt. She was a single parent trying her best, and I let her down. And this is why I keep telling young girls, your mother should be your best friend. Your mother should know how you feel, regardless of how she yells at you, regardless of how she reacts. She wants the best for you. So do not confide in nobody else but your mom, because she knows best. Um, I got a lot of lashes. I got some whooping. Yeah, that was her first reaction towards me. Um, but it's understandable. At that moment, I thought she didn't love me, but it's understandable now that I'm a mother, because now you understand from your experience the sacrifices a mother makes, the things she would do to go way and beyond to see you become this great human, even though she wasn't. And I realized how hard it was. But yes, she didn't react really well. She did her best to accept it. After family counseling, we did come to the point of forgiveness. She forgave me, I forgive her. And now that grandson is her baby. I cannot say anything. If I say I'm gonna, Andres isn't behaving well, but at his age, you don't behave, mom. Okay, but you don't need to say that. No, no, no. I can't say anything about Andres. So now she says, Adriana, you need to realize that Andres isn't you. The way of sugarcoating it. But yeah, now we are at a better place. I thank God every day that my mom and I could have found that resolution of forgiving each other and understanding that we both made mistakes, we both fell short, and moving forward.
Thank you for that. It's funny how that change happens. All of a sudden, grandmother's gonna be grandmothers, and declare a clear favorite, and you can't say that to the baby. Thank you so much for that. And thank you to the folks who are interacting in the chat. I see that Olia Lokai has posed some questions. I think those questions are more for our technical folks who are not on the panel, but UNFPA will reach out with you to you with a response to that. I see other questions coming in, but I'm going to ask if we can hold those. So, we're going to take those across and come back to them so that we can move to the next segment, which is where we will have the video questions. So in the next segment, we're going to do a little bit of myth busting around contraceptives, especially because we are recognizing, well, we've known that the barrier is not just about being able to get to contraceptives when you need it, but also myths related to contraceptives and also other people's perceptions around contraceptives that young people are exposed to. So we are going to have some videos from youth advisory groups across the region, and we are going to give our panelists an opportunity to respond. Tommy, are you ready with the videos? Please remember, if you're posting, use the hashtag Seen the Unseen, okay?
Hi, good day. My name is Bernice. I joined female co-chair of the Youth Advisory Group, UNFPA, Trinidad and Tobago. We know that young persons are very diverse. My question is, how can we ensure and being very inclusive when we speak to access to contraceptives? So, for example, considering the reality of a differently able young persons, a reality of a rural young woman or young man, and the reality of an unattached young person that is not necessarily associated with one particular school or one particular organization. How can we ensure to cater for this diversity when we're speaking to contraceptives and access to SRH services? Thank you.
All right. I think that we might be having a little bit of difficulty with that video, but I believe I've gotten the gist of it. The question seems to be, how can we ensure that we are being inclusive when we're offering information around contraceptives to young people? So if we're talking to young people living with disabilities, we're talking to young people who are living in rural areas, what are some of the steps that we can take to ensure that we are including young people from different groups? I don't know if there's anybody who wants to speak to this one first. Christopher, I see your hand is up. Welcome.
Yes, please. Well, speaking on the part of persons living with disabilities, well, what I can recommend, what we did here in Barbados, at the Barbados Council for the Disabled, which is the umbrella body organization that represents persons with disabilities. What we did several years ago, we've put on a program under the UNFPA, which we were able to teach persons how to use condoms and the do's and don'ts and the rights. So having this information that is disabled friendly also, and that is out there for persons, that is all inclusive. This is one step that can be taken because, as we know, the society sees persons with disabilities different. Like, they would want to know, why would you want to use a condom? What you're doing, all the questions they would ask. So having that information out there, it would help persons to better understand, and it would bring more awareness around contraceptives as well.
All right. Thank you very much for that. Adriana, Chatiara, okay.
Yeah. So I at the question I would answer to the part more for the rural areas and also the urban community. I would so as the study I mentioned and the programs we do with the Youth Advisory Group of the UNFPA, we collect data from all activity, and we can utilize that information to guide program intervention, suitable program intervention. So when it comes to all these different groups, there is a way of making them suitable for the target audience, and we can utilize that information for advocacy, spreading awareness with the decision makers, and using findings to shape resources and mobilization efforts. For instance, during COVID-19, everything was a little bit, everything went online, I would say. And you saw the importance of people having the need to, the people from the deaf and blind community, especially we worked with them, especially because they saw a whole community was being left behind during it, because we had on masks, they couldn't understand us, they had a hard time acknowledging what we're trying to say. So what we also did with the Youth Advisory Group is, in every activity that we had, we made sure that someone was there to do sign languages or even come with us, because sometimes we forget that they are in fact being left behind, people with disability in general. So we have to make the extra effort to include them, and to restate what I already said is to utilize the information we already have and have a suitable approach. Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for raising that that importance of having access to information that's really specific to the community that you are supporting. Adriana, anything that you'd like to add to this question of how we can ensure that we're being inclusive when we're offering contraceptive information to young people? You're not hearing us? Adriana? No, not hearing us. Okay. All right.
Okay.
We will try
Got it now.
to fix. Oh, you're in.
Okay. So to ensure we're inclusive of everyone, I do believe that persons who deal with teenagers directly, for example, in communities, you go small in medical centers, you go, because it is important not to only give or have the access so that they can get the contraceptives, but also to educate them about the contraceptives. So I do believe in going in small. There is a group in Guyana by the name of Rotarac, a set of UG students. They asked me once to make a speech in the Sophia Medical Center because they had the highest rate of teenage pregnancies. So we would go there and we will talk about my experience and how it affected me, what they need to do not to get pregnant, and in the event that they're sexually active, they should always do family planning in order not to bring unwanted pregnancies or unsafe abortions, which is very, very common. So I do believe that not only providing, but educating them in rural areas, areas where nobody would go, like, the areas where people won't step down to go, you go because you know the importance of not getting pregnant at 15, right? So, yes, not only providing, but educating them also. Have someone there to share their story, to let them know the importance of it.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much for that. So we can move on now to our second question. It's four questions we have phone in. I hope you're ready. I hope everyone is prepared. Tommy, please run the second question. Plenty things to do today.
Hi, my name is Abigail Moore from the UNFPA Youth Advisory Group. And my question is, what can youth-focused organizations, both government and non-governmental organizations, do to support young people who accidentally become pregnant so that they're able to be functioning and ideal parents while also being contributing members of society?
So I believe if I'm getting the gist of that question, it's what can government and non-government organizations do to support young people who have unintended pregnancies so that they can go on to, I think, be reintegrated into society and function at the highest levels. Anybody want to take that one first? Adriana. We're not hearing you.
Hi there. Yes, I was saying. So I will bring my personal experience as well. When I became pregnant and I joined WAD had a program just called the Comprehensive Life Skills Program, where I learned several things. I learned how to decorate weddings, decorate baby showers, decorate parties. Um, I learned how to make floral arrangements. And my first job was actually at a florist, where I earned my first salary, and I was able to sustain my son. So I believe that there should be more programs like Women Across Differences around the world, where they encourage young women that even though you have a child, it is not the end of the world. It is just the beginning.
Thank you very much for that. It's not the end of the world, it's just the beginning. All right. Chatera, Christopher, anybody else would like to speak to that question of what government and NGOs can?
Yes. So I also wanted to mention that
Chatera, you have muted again.
yes, sorry. I was mentioning that this question was already raised at the beginning of our year at Youth Advisory Group, and we actually had a very educational talk with leaders of the country. We went to the National Assembly, and they actually asked us for ways they can approve the partnership and how they can facilitate this. And what Adriana mentioned is actually the most effective ways. Also speaking with other people, they say program where you can learn things and you can utilize them. You can get some money out of it, and also just the awareness, the not the awareness before, but after that, it's a process, right? When you have a child, when you're young, it doesn't stop when you have the baby. It actually begins. So the aftercare that we can make in some way have programs or institutionalize it, and basically highlighting what Adriana said. And we're also doing our part here. So I do agree with Adriana when she says programs and institutions.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Thank you so much for that. Christopher, anything you want to add?
Oh, well, most of the panelists would have said the majority, but as we all know, entrepreneurship, it is something that is really important in such situations, because we can utilize our community centers to have programs where persons can, which will be free to persons, they can learn a skill and also become their own business owner. And it would help them to get back into society by having their business out there as well. And with having the government on board due to partnership, that would help to spread the word even further.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for that.
No problem.
you. All right, sorry, I saw something in the chat. All right, so we have 2 more videos to go. Tommy, let me know when you're ready with the next video. Okay.
Everyone. Greetings, everyone. My name is Camila Gaspar. I am speaking on behalf of the UNFPA YAG, which is the Youth Advisory Group. I have a question for segment 1 and for segment 2, segment 1 being unintended pregnancies. My first question being, what are the roles of males in the events that an unintended pregnancy occurs, and why are they not more integrated into these types of discussions? And for segment 2, my question would be, what are the roles of religious bodies in contraceptive use? So,
I really wanted to hear the segment 2 question. I can't even get the gist of it. Okay, so what we do have is, and it's a great question, what is the role of males in terms of unintended pregnancies, and especially in how they show up after an unintended pregnancy occurs? Now, I don't want to assume Christopher first, go and say no. I don't want to assume. I do not want to. Whoever wishes to take this question first, meeting.
Since I was spot on the spot,
Yeah.
in a smart way, well, I can't answer that from experience, but as a male, my perspective on that is you should be there as part of the support system, because you don't know what your partner is going through, because you are part of that pregnancy. So then I believe that you should still be there as support. Whether you want to keep the child, then you can have a discussion. What would be the plans to move forward?
Thank you for that. There is definitely more space that we need for thinking through this, which is why I'm very glad that there's a man on this panel today. Shatera, you had unmuted.
Yeah. To answer to that question, in relation to Suriname and the community I'm talking about, it is a phenomenon that the research show they may support. So it's not a given that the male will always stay after the pregnancy. But on the other hand, it also highlighted the need for comprehensive sexual education, because a part of that is family planning. So if the girl only gets the barely information on what sex is, or the information is already scarce on the girl side about the effects and the family planning, all of that. And on the side of the gentleman, I can't speak for them, but it may be less. So I think that actually highlighted the need of comprehensive sexual education. So if we have that in place, I don't believe it's something that will happen just like that. But if we're making steps towards it, the awareness has to be created, both genders. So I think that's a step moving forward. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Adriana, anything that you want to add? You're not hearing? Oh, okay. All right. We'll figure that out. All right. So okay, you're here with us.
All right, yes. Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes. So the question is about the roles of men in unintended pregnancies, and in particular to speak to how men respond after an unintended pregnancy has occurred.
Oh, big question. Big question. All right. So based on my experience, I do believe that mothers, all the elderly folks should speak more to their boy children in regards to this, because they aren't ready. most of the times they even hear, oh, I might be pregnant, you know. So I do believe that there should be more education, sexual education for the boys as well. So in the case of this happening, they will have a better reaction than, oh, it's not mine. Oh, it wasn't me. Oh, it's your responsibility. So as a mother of a 14-year-old, I do believe that you should at all times, not only your girl children, but your boy children as well, you need to educate them about sexual reproduction and the consequences of doing it without knowledge and before time as well.
Thank you very much. And thank you for reminding us that everything comes full circle. We're not functioning alone. You know, like if we're educating, we have to educate overall. All right, we have one more question from the Youth Advisory Group. Are we ready with that question? I see notes in the chat. I am writing them down. We will get to them in the question and answer segment. Thank you. Ready for the last video? While the video is loading, I will just share that James Miles said that mentoring and coaching is vital to encourage male participation in unprepared pregnancy. James, thank you very much for sharing that with us.
What would you say to young girls who are conflicted about the use of contraception because of their religion? What would you say to young girls who are conflicted about the use of
That whole question came through, and again, it's another big one. What would you say to young girls who are conflicted about the use of contraceptives because of their religion? I saw Shatera's eyes got wide on that one. Shatera said, oh.
Yeah, I have a very conservative Christian upbringing. So it is a big question for me. But I've been in the youth advisory group for a while now, so I think I found common ground, I would say. I always say it's about, or I've been taught it's about making informed decisions. You adapt your information that you have about SRHR, about gender. You adapt it to the person. You're speaking, but make sure the person that is supposed to get the information, you're talking in their language. That's first and foremost, try to talk to them in their language. Second is, I always say it's about making informed decisions. So I'm not telling you to do it. I'm not telling you to not do it. I'm telling you if you're going to do it, you can use this, and this happens, that. So I think we should state the obvious first. It's about making informed decisions. And I actually lead a few children at the church also. So they know they're able to talk to me about certain stuff they wouldn't dare talk to other people about. But I always tell them it's about making informed decision, and if you use this, and I also make sure they know the cycle that we're in. As I mentioned at the beginning, I have a lot of Maroon youth where I go to church. So I tell them, like, if this happens, this might happen. Look at your sister, look at your auntie, look at my mother, look at your. So that's what I say. You have the information, just make sure you say it in their language, and also be mindful. We are very respectful people at the end. So that will be my go-to way of going about it. At least that's how I go about it. I just inform them.
Thank you. So give them the information and let them know that ultimately the decision is theirs. It's their decision to make. All right. Thank you for that. Christopher or Adriana, would anybody like to add to this question of how do we have this conversation with young girls who have reservations based on their religion?
Okay, well, I agree with the panelists before me because information is vital. And once you have that information, it then allows you to make those correct decisions that, it would help you to be comfortable once you have that information ready for you. Because, there's each situation is different. So then it would help to navigate the way you may see a situation of someone else as well. And as the panelist said, your family members, they can also be examples, used as examples as well for the situation.
Thank you for that. Adriana, I saw that your hand was up.
As I was saying, relations bodies. I believe there is a God. I do believe that we should act as God ordained. However, we also have to remain realistic of the fact that there are some people that do not go by the Bible as well. So we as the church are supposed to inform them, well, this is what the Bible says, but this is also what you can do. You know, the Bible says you should abstain until you get married, which is a good thing to do, but not most people do it. So if you cannot encourage them to do that, then you encourage them to protect themselves. That's how I see it. Because not everybody will do, and especially now in these times that we're living with so much STDs around the world, we need to do something in order to minimize young people getting infected with HIV and other STDs. So we pray for them that they may do the right thing, but we also inform them about what they should do.
Thank you. One of the things that I love about the responses that we're getting today is so much of the responses are focused on people's autonomy and their own right to choose and direct their own lives. And I think that's exactly the type of approach that we're hoping that folks can take. And I think it's exactly the type of thing that UNFPA is asking us to do and to consider. Now, everything works out in due time because I see that questions are coming in. And we are officially at the third segment, the third and final segment of today's session, which is the question and answer. So I see that, is it Rosea Lane? You have your hand up. I would love to unmute you and for you to share your question. All right, you had unmuted briefly and then muted again.
Liz, I would like to ask, what are the challenges a young mother or a young father would have during pregnancy and before birth?
What are the challenges that a young mother or a young father would have during pregnancy and before birth? That's the question?
Yes, Miss.
All right, thank you. Would anybody want to speak to that question about some of those? Adriana Messia and right up there.
So some of the challenges that a mother or father, young father would face is that most of the time you don't know what to do. So you get frustrated, you have no guidance, and you do what you think is best at the moment, which is not the right thing. I found myself when I was in a relationship with my first partner, when I got pregnant. He would get frustrated and not say anything, and then I'll feel neglected because I'm the one carrying the child. I'm the one feeling everything, and I have nobody to talk to because my mother is very angry. So yeah, I do believe that that's one of the main challenge. You don't know what to do. You have no guidance. So frustration gets the best of you and you make mistakes. So that is why you should have more support groups like is WAD, and we thank you UNFPA and UNICEF for funding us, because if it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't be possible. It wouldn't be possible for young women like me to be as successful as we want to be, because you see, we don't have that support. We don't have people that come to counsel us for free like we have it at WAD. We have doctors that come to from Colombia. Yes, there was this doctor, and they make a great impact on us because they leave what they usually do. You know, they leave their comfort zone to come and talk to us and let us know what we should do, what we should not do. And I just want to thank you, NFPA, and UNICEF for being a part of my evolvement as a woman and as a mother that knows what to do now.
Thank you so much for that. So you said something that actually links to a comment that we're getting from the YouTube feed. And it says that not just a support system. I think this discussion is always so gendered. Men need to take ownership of their role in the child's life and be present. And so I wanted to pose that to the panelists as, do you think that, you know, we're having this conversation in a way that kind of allows men to exit the situation? And if that is the case, what is the shift that we need to make in how we're talking about unintended pregnancies that holds men more accountable and treats men as more than a support system to the mother? I'll give you some thinking time. In the meantime, I'll ask everybody, since this is a regional launch, please let us know in the chat where you're from. If you can find your flag in the chat, drop it. If not, just drop the name of your country. So we know exactly who is here with us today, because I know that we have a wide cross section. To my panelists, who I can tell are thinking very hard. The question again, are we having these conversations in a way that are we letting men off the hook when it comes on to unintended pregnancies? And if we are, what do we need to be doing differently?
I agree. And there was actually a line in the crop report. Yeah. Stated unintended pregnancy must not be framed as solely a women's issue. And what happens in these type of talks. So I'm glad Christopher is here as a panelist, and I'm glad for movement as he for she. Those type of movements, those little actions make it easier. I know for myself, you have a way, you know, your friend circle or the guys you have in your circle, you know how to maybe open up a conversation about that. But in general sense, it isn't that easy. They can just say, okay, you guys figure it out. Generally, that's just how I view it. So I do agree with the statement where they're not being held accountable. But as one of the comments also said, it takes coaching, or you read the comment actually, and I agree with that comment, because what you don't know, you can't exercise, right? So if they're not being held accountable, if a girl gets pregnant and she just takes care of it like women do, always just take care of it regardless. So if that just keeps happening, then we may continue in the same cycle. So I do think the coaching is needed on both ends. so they know they have a part to play. They need to know they have a part to play. They need to feel accountable that they have a part to play. And it's just not a women's issue. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Shatera. Christopher, would you like to add anything? I think you had unmuted at the start.
Well, as a guy, I guess that, as Shatera said, persons, both partners in the relationship, they have to be, I guess they would have to be mentored so that they can understand that they need to play their role in the child's life. Because sometimes single parenting can be challenging from my observation, for sure. But being there, sometimes playing that role, it helps to bring the child in the right direction. It helps the child to grow in that direction that they need to grow.
Thank you for that. Adrian, I don't know if you have anything that you would like to add in terms of this question. Reminding the folks on YouTube, yes, no? Let me know. Folks on YouTube, you can drop your flags as well. All right, come in.
Yes. So I do believe that we left them off the hook because women are so independent now that they don't even want their helps because it is stressful to you to go reminding someone that, oh, we have a child together. It is your responsibility to do so, you know. As for me, I do believe that we should have more counseling sections for men because we don't have much role models or men in society that would stand and say, oh, these are the things that you need to do as a dad. You should take your responsibility seriously. We don't have that. And more and more, it's increasing. So we should have men going out into communities and we should have them trained and we should have them take counseling so they can know for their own experience what to expect, what to say, and how to communicate with other men that aren't feeling that, responsibility, that check.
Thank you for that. So one of the things that has come up throughout the session is that we need to be taking like a gender inclusive approach to this. And I am interested in knowing about the myths that are persisting. And I don't know if you have one set of myths that the men are holding on to and another set of myths that the women are holding on to, or if we just have the same myths that we refuse to let die. And so to my panelists, I would love to hear from you, each person, asking you for just one myth that young people in your region, your country, are still living with right now, even if it's one that shifted a toops, one that people are still believing, right? Hey, these people have the most fantastic thinking faces, You have the up to the sky thinking face. Don't like this thinking face. Rosea, I see that you have your hand up. I don't know if it's an old hand. If you do have an additional question, I would love if you could put it in the chat and we could pose it to the panelists as they are doing this work right now of thinking about the myths that are persisting. Because when we read the report, we do recognize that myths are still very prevalent and they are proving to be a barrier to contraceptive uptake, and they're varied. So anybody have one, or would you like me to share one from the report? Shatira look like she have balance between three. So I'll share one. So one of the myths that we found in the State of the World Population Report is the idea that contraceptives lead to infertility. So people are, yeah, you're finding that people are believing that in your area too. So people are shying away from contraceptive use because they think that it's going to lead them to become infertile eventually, which is not actually true, but it's something that a lot of times they're told, especially by older people who did not themselves have access to, you know, this kind of comprehensive sexual reproductive health information. All right. Anything else? Anybody got any?
Yeah, so I think it's maybe also a generational thing. Using contraceptives as plan B and stuff makes you gain weight or makes you fatter. So people try to stay away. It's actually last week I've been hearing it a lot. So it's like, oh, it's really a general thing. So people tend to shy away from it because they think it will transform them or something. So that is a general myth. Yeah, on the girl side.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And some people do gain weight, but it's not everybody. And I know a lot of people who are like, I'm not sacrificing my flat belly child. Listen to me. I'm not sacrificing my flat belly to where use no contraceptives. So anybody else? Look at Adriana, just like flat belly, you said. Adriana, Christopher, any myths that you can think of from your area? So a lot of it is really about consulting your physician. You know, like if you have concerns, if there's anybody here that's listening and you have concerns and you feel like the contraceptive is going to cause your body to change or transform, you talk to a physician. Like just go in and hold a reasoning with them, let them know your concerns, and they will be there to provide you with some useful information. Yeah. Anybody else want to share one?
Yeah, I have an additional one actually. It's more working with people from religious backgrounds. They truly believe if you start talking about it, you're thinking about having it. So that's also the information there. There's where the informational gap has to be closed because you can't talk about it, and so that is a general myth. If you talk about it, you're just 5 seconds away from doing it. So yeah.
I've heard that one too. Like if you give young people too much information, it's going to urge them to start having sex. I'm like, but what about the young people who are having sex and need the information? And also, if young people don't have comprehensive information, they can't really choose, can they? Like if you don't know what you need to know about a situation, you can't really make a choice. It's kind of an illusion that there is choice, right? Anybody have anything else to add? We are getting close to the end of our session today. No? All right. Well, I will just share two more that I came across. Well, the one that it makes them promiscuous. The other big one that with condoms, men cannot enjoy sex. They can't feel anything and there's no pleasure in it for them. And it's, look at Adriana's face. And there is just this big, you know, what is the word? Burden that men have to bear when they use condoms, which a lot of men will tell you, it's not true. But a good number of men do believe that. And that, you know, it's like couples can't have their sexual freedom. Couples can't enjoy their relationship because there's this thing standing between them, which, you know, as we know, it's not actually accurate. So if there's anybody who is interested in more information about these myths, more information about where we are in terms of unintended pregnancy, please go ahead and check out the report. If you look in the chat, you will see that Justine Dunkley Malcolm dropped the link. I will ask if she can post it again, just so that it's closer to the end of the chat. I am going to close my panel discussion, and I am going to thank my speakers for coming here today and dropping these pearls of wisdom and also sharing with us from their personal experience, so that we can make use of it for ourselves. So Shatera Adrai, Christopher Jilks, Adriana Chappelle, thank you very much for the work that you're doing in your communities, and thank you for the decisions that you have made around how you're going to put your personal experience to use. For the rest of us, as somebody who lives in the region and works in the region, I really appreciate you. So thank you for being a part of our panel today.
No problem.
Thank you, Carla.
It's a pleasure.
Yay. Let's hear it for our panelists. You can give them applause using the reaction button, or you can put it in the chat. We did have some questions that came in earlier that we said were a little bit outside of the scope of the panelists. So we are going to invite Alison Drayton to come and address those questions that came up. I think they came up from Leo. Yes, Alison. Not hearing you.
I think she can.
You know what some of the issue is, Carla? The system doesn't allow one to unmute immediately. Hence my gesticulation. You had to unmute me. I believe the question to me was as follows. Sorry, bear with me. The question was, there are structural influences that contribute and drive vulnerabilities of young women to become pregnant. Some examples are lack of opportunity, lack of education, low socioeconomic status, and social media peer pressure. What legislative reform and programming is being done to challenge these drivers in the Caribbean countries? So I would say, observationally, I don't think that it is as much. There are issues linked to socioeconomic status, but above and beyond, through our lens of working on adolescent pregnancy in the Caribbean, one of the biggest challenges is the lack of access to information and family planning methods, which is driven by the fact that, as I said in my remarks, for many of the countries, I think for most of the countries, you cannot access even information below the age of 18 unless you go with a parent or a guardian. And this is in countries where you can get married at 16, but you still have 2 years before you can determine the outcome of that marriage. I mean, I just point out that while many of the unintended pregnancies happen outside of marriage, they're, within marriage as well. People get pregnant not wishing to. And UNFPA is just concluding an extensive review of SRH legislation across the region, looking at the inconsistencies that lead to barriers, not just in the legislation itself, but in the policies and guidance that are given. And I'll give one example that sent a room full of women into spasms when the consultant presented, which is that in many of the countries, if a man decides to have a vasectomy, that's him and his doctor. If a woman decides to have her tubes tied, this is not legislation. It is not defined policy, but the doctor is going to ask that woman to kindly have her partner sign off. You do not control your body. I thought a room full of 200 people were going to mug the poor consultant in rage. Anyway, so we've concluded this legislative study. We will be meeting shortly with a group across the region of parliamentarians, of CSOs, to look at it and to begin the discussion on how one can then take forward the outcome of this analysis, and to what extent governments, parliaments, and citizens are interested in reconciling some of the biggest, addressing some of the biggest gaps and reconciling the inconsistencies. The other point that I would want to mention, because there is, as I think many of the questions and the panelists have alluded to, also the issue of, and you yourself, Carla, of culture and behavior. And we are doing quite a bit of work as well on this. And if you would permit, very briefly as you close, I would like to ask my colleague Aurora, who heads our office in Trinidad and is leading the work with UE, to speak briefly about the kind of model that we are developing for cultural and behavioral change with UE on this. So if we could go to Aurora. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. And this has been a very interesting discussion. Yes, we are working with the University of the West Indies, the Institute of Gender and Development Studies, as well as Carryman and even UNICEF, but primarily UE and Carryman, to review what information has already been published in the region on social norms and behavior change. And they are coming up with a model that can be adopted by governments within our region in terms of how we would drive behavior change. And this will be accompanied by a communication strategy and products that we can use to help promote this type of change that we want to see. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you both, Alison and Aurora, for joining us to provide this particular perspective and also answer some of the questions that we could not have taken on from the chat. Alison, it's always a pleasure knowing that you are the back team. And with that, we have come to the end of our event. So thank you for joining us at the How Do Unintended Pregnancies Affect Me Youth Roundtable Talk. And we have officially regionally launched the 2022 State of the World Population Report. Thank you to Alison Drayton and Seth Brookman from the UNFPA Sub-Regional Office for the Caribbean. Thank you to our panelists, Shatera. Thank you to Christopher. Thank you for Adriana for coming in and sharing with us. Thank you to our UNFPA donors,